For 500 years, this was one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in human history. How did the people of Easter Island, working without wheels, without draft animals, without cranes, move 13-ton stone giants across miles of rugged volcanic terrain? Scholars proposed everything: ancient aliens, lost technology, mass human sacrifice, each theory more desperate than the last. But the Rapa Nui people themselves never lost the answer. They told every European who landed on their shores. The statues walked, and in October 2025, physicists and archaeologists did something remarkable. They proved it. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui as its people have always called it, is one of the most isolated places on Earth. A volcanic triangle barely 24 kilometers across, it sits in the South Pacific, more than 3,500 kilometers from the nearest continental coast. Polynesian voyagers first settled here around 1200 CE, navigating open ocean by stars, current, and instinct, settling this speck of land as a permanent home. Over the next 4 to 5 centuries, they built something extraordinary, a civilization whose artistic ambition would outscale anything in the ancient Pacific. They called their stone monuments Moai, representations of powerful ancestors, carved to protect the living from the spiritual realm. The quarry was a volcanic crater called Rano Raraku. Nearly 95% of all Moai were cut directly from its compressed volcanic ash, using only basalt hand tools. The work was extraordinary. The average Moai stands 4 meters tall and weighs 12.5 metric tons. And here, still half buried in the rock, is the one they never finished, El Gigant, 21 meters tall, an estimated 160 to 180 metric tons of uncarved ambition. From this quarry, finished statues were moved, sometimes kilometers, to ceremonial platforms called ahu along the coastline. The question that haunted archaeologists for 3 centuries was simple: how? When European scholars began studying the island in earnest, they brought their own assumptions. These people, so isolated, so numerically small, could not possibly have solved this problem elegantly. And so the theories multiplied. Wooden rollers. Cut trees, lay them as tracks, roll the statues horizontally across the island. It was logical. It was mechanically sound. There was only one problem. It required an enormous quantity of timber, which meant devastating the island's forests. And this is where the story became a cautionary tale. Jared Diamond, in his landmark 2005 book Collapse, argued that the Rapa Nui had done exactly this: destroyed their own ecosystem in service of their monument-building obsession, consumed their forests, triggered ecological collapse, and doomed their civilization. Easter Island became the world's most famous parable of self-inflicted catastrophe. But there was always a problem with this story: the roads. Researchers examining the ancient transport routes from Rano Raraku noticed something strange. These were not the wide, flat tracks you would need to roll heavy objects horizontally. The roads measured approximately 4.5 meters across, and their cross-section was concave, slightly curved inward like a channel. That shape makes no sense for rolling or dragging. But for rocking, for a standing statue pivoting on a curved base, it is perfect. A groove that catches and guides the rocking motion, preventing sideways drift. And then there was the evidence hiding in the Moai themselves. Anthropologist Carl Lipo of Binghamton University and Terry Hunt of the University of Arizona had been studying Easter Island for over a decade. In 2025, they published the results of analyzing 962 Moai using high-resolution 3D modeling. What they found was a crucial distinction nobody had fully mapped before. The Moai found along the transport roads were physically different from the statues erected on coastal platforms. Road statues had a D-shaped base, broad, rounded, curved like the rockers on a rocking chair, a forward lean of 5 to 15 degrees from vertical, built directly into the statue's center of gravity, heavier heads, and critically, no carved eye sockets. Eye sockets were only added once the statue reached its final platform. These were not accidental features. They were engineering specifications. The method worked like this. 3 teams, 3 ropes, 1 rope attached behind to prevent forward tipping. 2 ropes, 1 on each side, pulled alternately by teams walking alongside. Left team pulls. The statue rocks left and lurches slightly forward. Right team pulls. It rocks right and lurches forward again. Left, right, left, right. A slow, deliberate waddle, a walk. Once you get it moving, it isn't hard at all. People are pulling with 1 arm. It conserves energy, and it moves quickly. To test their model, Lipo and Hunt built a precision replica Moai. 4.35 metric tons of concrete, shaped to the exact proportions of a road transport statue. The D-shaped base, the forward lean, the heavier head profile. Then they assembled a team of 18 people. In 40 minutes, those 18 people moved that statue 100 meters, and not by brute force, by physics, by momentum, by a rocking rhythm that the Rapa Nui had figured out 1,000 years before Newton formalized the equations, and the archaeological record locks into place. That exponential decay of fallen statues. 43% fell within 1 kilometer of the quarry, 65% within 2 kilometers. The pattern matches mechanical transport failure. A rope breaks. A team loses rhythm, not intentional placement or later conflict. The fracture patterns on broken road Moai show vertical forward impact stress. They fell face first from a standing position, exactly as you would expect when a walking motion fails. Not the horizontal crushing damage of a dragged statue. Even the fallen ones became part of the story. The Rapa Nui gave them names. They became boundary markers. They were not cleared or salvaged. They were respected as ancestors who had simply stopped walking. And here is where the full weight of this discovery lands. If the Moai were walked, if they required only ropes and people, then they required no timber, no forest clearance, no ecological collapse. The dominant narrative of Easter Island, the cautionary tale of a people who destroyed their world, may be wrong. Recent research suggests Rapa Nui's forests were largely consumed by Pacific rats introduced with the first settlers, and that the population held steady until European contact in the 18th century brought the true catastrophe: slave raids, disease, collapse. The walking Moai didn't doom Easter Island. We did. The 2025 study by Lipo and Hunt is not merely a resolution to an archaeological puzzle. It is a reminder of something we keep forgetting. Ancient peoples were not limited. They were not waiting for us to explain their own achievements. The Rapa Nui told every visitor who came to their island the truth. The statues walked. For 300 years, the academic world, certain that a small, isolated Pacific civilization could not have found an elegant solution, invented explanations on their behalf. What physics ultimately proved was what the ancestors never stopped saying. And there is something worth sitting with in that. How many other mysteries dismissed as myth are waiting for the right instruments, the right questions, the right willingness to listen to the people who were there? Easter Island's Moai did not need ancient aliens, lost technology, or a civilization's self-destruction. They needed ingenuity, ropes, and 18 people who knew how to walk a god across the earth. If this story changed how you see the ancient world, subscribe to Universal Paradox Studios. Every week we go deeper into the civilizations, mysteries, and discoveries that reshape what we thought we knew. And if you want to go further, our video on the ancient engineers of the pre-Columbian Americas is next. You won't look at primitive the same way again. Leave a comment. What's the ancient mystery you most want us to investigate? We read every one. The Moai are still watching the horizon. They've been patient for 1,000 years.